My father has always understood that people of all faiths, backgrounds, and communities deserve to be celebrated and supported. It began with a silence that felt like an announcement in itself. Phones buzzed across the country, and newsrooms filled with people who had nothing to say. The usual stream of carefully timed statements and polished appearances evaporated, as if someone had closed a great book of ceremonial phrases and locked it away. At first, it was only a whisper, the kind of rumor that lingers in the margins of corridors. Then it became a low hum. By mid-morning, everyone was searching for a reason to explain the quiet. The royal household had gone mute, and that absence of explanation carried a weight that 1,000 speeches never could. Reporters tried to piece together what had happened. Experts were called in. Pundits rehearsed their theories, but none found a clear answer. The palace machine that normally prepared every phrase and photograph had, for reasons no one could yet explain, stopped. It was as if the old rules were suddenly optional, and those who had always known how to follow them were left without a script. The effect was immediate. Where there had once been routine and ritual, there was now unmediated attention. The country, accustomed to measure releases and controlled optics, felt something shift beneath its feet. As the day wore on, speculation swelled. Some suggested health problems. Others guessed at family strife. And there were even whispers of abdication and sudden changes in roles once thought impossible. None of these guesses were backed by fact. What everyone felt instead was the chill that precedes change. The absence of noise itself became the story, a silence that spoke of decisions being made in private, hinting at the beginning of something new. Then, at 6 o'clock in the evening, the silence broke, not with the expected faces, not with the stately presence of the throne, nor the familiar tones of the palace announcer. Instead, two figures appeared together in a simple room, looking nothing like a planned ceremony. There were no banners, no displays of rank, no official portraits. It was just them, William and Kate. They sat opposite each other and spoke directly, as people do when they want to share something that belongs to them, not to an office. William did not declaim. He spoke with a steady voice, the sort of father would used to be heard. There was resolve in it, a quiet insistence that this was about more than protocol. He was not discarding the past. He was reframing what it meant to belong to a public office. His words were not confrontational, but a subtle reorientation, like a compass needle moving and settling on a new truth. When Kate spoke, she offered no polished speech. She spoke from the moments that mattered, from those small acts of compassion that measure a person. There was nothing theatrical about it. She listened, and then spoke back with a voice asking only for understanding. Her tone suggested that leadership is not inherited, but is earned through daily choices. Respect is not owed simply because of a title. It must be given and justified through deeds. No teleprompter was used, nor were there any elaborate gestures. They were simply honest, and that honesty landed. It reached beyond palace walls into kitchens, living rooms, and hospital wards. For many watching, there was an instant sense that something familiar had shifted, not a rebellion, but a careful pivot toward showing instead of merely saying. They presented a project sparked by someone whose memory still shaped public feeling. No nostalgic stunt, but a carefully organized program to focus attention where it is most deeply needed, improving support for young people and their feelings of emotional pain and loneliness. The approach was different, built with humility. It did without grand openings and ornate plaques, promising practical aid, local engagement, and the patience to address complex problems without applause. People connected with this work saw themselves in it. Volunteers and community organizers who'd spent years in the trenches saw directly that this wasn't a headline grab. This was a commitment to slow, meaningful work. Their announcement invited partnerships with the health sector, educators, charities, and local groups. Their language was that of builders, not broadcasters. Not everyone in the household received the news the same way. That public attention, nearly in an instant, began to shift. Whereas previously narratives had followed the sovereign and consort, journalists and social media turned toward these younger royals, hungry for stories that felt close and relevant. The shift was not just about popularity. It was about an appetite for practical, available leadership. King Charles found this shift hard to bear. It was not a storm of anger, but a heavy, private grief. After a lifetime of preparation, He had stepped into the role he had imagined for decades. The crown is a weight of ritual and expectation, and he had been ready for a defining moment of legacy. When it arrived, people's attention turned elsewhere. This loss was not only in headlines, but in quiet rooms, and the fading of focused attention a profound unsettlement. Camilla reacted differently. Having spent years managing her image and building charitable connections, she saw a potential threat. Parts of the palace are built around legacy stewardship, and Camilla had claimed a place within those structures. The sudden reemergence of a figure with deep emotional resonance unsettled a delicate equilibrium. Diana remained present in the public imagination, her memory of compassion and direct contact, both a blessing and a challenge to the institution. Palace advisors navigated as usual, calculating risks and keeping household machinery running smoothly. They did not oppose publicly, but drifted into withdrawal, withholding endorsements and hoping the attention would pass without official sanction. William and Kate did not wait for permission. Their project needed no committee approval or official sanction. It was deeply personal, and in that way, it required none. They moved in plain sight, but without spectacle. They were there when people were suffering, and they did not insist on the trappings of formal representation. The tension between the generations was understated, a quiet divergence of purpose rather than a public clash. Nobody stormed the palace gates, and there were no televised arguments. Instead, a series of private misunderstandings gradually widened into real distance. William sought to preserve the monarchy's essence, but to bind it more closely to ordinary life. Charles, by contrast, wished to preserve the continuity and ritual that formed the spine of his sense of service. Neither acted in bad faith. Both believed they were defending what should be preserved. Outside the palace, the response was different. Tales began to be told that did not emanate from communications teams' desks. Those people who had met Kate on unannounced visits or received small grants from quietly directed funds began to tell their tales. These were human stories, not press releases. One mother recalled how Kate sat with her in a cramped kitchen and listened without easy platitudes. An overstretched social worker told how a note from the palace unlocked a partnership that brought much-needed clinic hours. Small moments like these multiplied into a pattern, reshaping expectations. William approached meetings unlike any royal program participant. He came as a learner, wore a name tag at a climate symposium, and took notes. This ordinary posture resonated with people fatigued by rituals heavy in symbolism but light on action. A video of him asking a young volunteer in a flood-affected area a simple, pointed question dash, "Are you here to help or just for show?" went viral. His direct response, expressing a real desire to help and take criticism, captured the new tone they were setting. What became known as the Diana Initiative was designed as a living network of services and partnerships. One arm focused on youth mental health, funding local centers for counseling, coping skills, and stigma-free support while connecting communities with trained professionals. Another addressed maternal health, bringing together experts, midwives, mothers, and researchers to fund pilot programs improving access to care and training. The efforts were practical, targeted, and measurable. William expanded environmental work to support grassroots climate adaptation, visiting floodplains and farming communities, bridging scientific research and local needs, emphasizing practical solutions over rhetoric. Consistently, their approach favored substance over spectacle, transparency over opacity, and measurable results over tradition in and of itself. They published partnerships, funding decisions, and outcomes that created legitimacy not rooted in legacy, but in results. Not everyone welcomed this change. Some insiders in the palace felt sidelined, concerned that the institutional soft power was being transformed into personal influence threatening slow, structural traditions. The rapid pace of public engagement was disorienting for the career palace staff. Yet the initiative found quiet allies. Younger family members recognized a model that allowed usefulness without the pitfalls of celebrity. They engaged because the work felt real, a sustained program with clear aims open to critique and improvement. Its influence spread globally. Mental health pilots found international partners, maternal health programs connected clinics across borders, and environmental projects fomented community-led responses from around the world. Public expectations shifted, Re-asking what the monarchy could provide beyond the ceremonial leadership it was valued for. Could it provide a platform for real change, transparently limited and collaborative rather than commanding? The initiative suggested that it could. The Diana Initiative underscored the principle of visibility, following effect. It is through effective problem-solving and openness in decision-making that trust flowed. Behind closed doors, though, there were mixed responses. Older generations grieved over looser norms, while others felt this release a unique opportunity to refresh ceremonial roles. Advisors accustomed to real discipline and timing adjusted to nimble, locally engaged programs, showing both the strength and fragility of the system. The initiative also revisited a painful past, reviving Diana as a symbol of compassion, while for some reopening old wounds. Camilla took this personally and signaled careful stewardship of the legacy to make sure sensitivity and respect are paid. Palace advisors, ever mindful of optics and politics, stepped back publicly, influencing quietly. Their bet that the momentum would fade was wrong. Grassroots support sustained the initiative because communities gaining from small, sustained funding were invested in its success. William and Kate kept up a rhythm of public visibility balanced with private work, testing programs, listening to criticism, adjusting funding, and organizing resources in those places where they mattered most. The symbolic acts reinforced practicality. They visited ordinary places, sat on low chairs in community centers, toured small clinics, and took part in long conversations recorded by volunteers rather than official photographers. These actions began to raise questions about the role of a modern monarchy. If royalty could be more than spectacle, could it also foster accountability? Could an institution so steeped in history meet emerging demands for transparency and tangible results? What the initiative showed was that while rituals have their value, there could indeed be a practical dimension of service running parallel with tradition. The crown could symbolize continuity and connect a tangible social impact, a duality that requires humility and openness to critique, qualities William and Kate consistently displayed.